you want to be a writer. You've had ideas flow around, you look at other people and you think, hey, I can do that. Or maybe you've been thrust into an organization that needs a writer. Whatever the reason you have for writing, you have entered in one of the most exciting and versatile forms of theater. The writer has been around since theater was conceived thousands of years ago. The early Greek writers wrote to tell stories about their gods and their histories. The writer has developed as theater has grown and found many different styles to tell the stories, whether it be the tragedies of the Greek, to Shakespeare's poetic plays, to Molière's biting comedies, to Shaw's realism, and to the writers that we have today. Hopefully, by the end of this workshop, you will have a better idea of what you need to do to write an effective scene or play. You must remember that everything develops from your original idea. And the best way to develop that is dependent on the idea itself. Comedy writes a little different than tragedy. A 5-minute scene is less complex than a 2-hour play with 3 different storylines. We will attempt to give you a basic understanding of what you need to make your idea happen. So, let's get started. The first and foremost thing you need to remember when wanting to become a writer is simply that you have to write. You must write every day or you'll not become conditioned to think or work like a writer. I can't say, yeah, I work out because I've worked out once. No, it's something I have to do every day. If I want to say I work out, I have to work out every day. If you say you want to be a writer, you have to write every day. Writing is the same way. You must write every day. If it's 10 minutes in your journal or a new scene or just some freestyling ideas, write, and then write again. Work consistently. You've got to find a time to write. Make time to write. Get up a little earlier. Use your lunch break. Sneak an hour after dinner. Be resourceful. You can always make time for yourself to write, even with the most hectic schedule. I once heard it said that you can make time for anything that's important in your life, and writing must be a priority and must become important in your life if you're wanting to be successful. It's important to say one more time, make time to write. Now, I'm going to give you a couple disciplines to help you in establishing a pattern for writing, okay? Here we go. Number 1, buy a notebook and keep it with you. Write all your ideas for scenes or plays or any conceptual ideas or whatever. Write it in this notebook. If you need to categorize by different areas, do that. Find a system that works best for you. Me, I have a little book that I carry around with me that I write all my ideas for sketches or plays or even just different funny ideas I come up with through the day. I write those down, and then later when it's time for my writing time, I go back and maybe we'll explore these ideas through different brainstorming sessions, which we'll talk about in a minute. Number 2, find a place that's comfortable to write. On your computer, you want a cup of coffee with you, a glass of water, your favorite kind of beverage, whatever it is. What kind of music do you like when you're playing? For myself, I have a weird thing where I have to write with the TV on as background music, and then I have my other CD playing that helps me get creative. It's weird, I know, but you know what? It's my own style, and it works for me. So all I'm saying is find your own style. What works best for you that makes you the most comfortable in your setting? Because if you're not comfortable, you can't concentrate. If you can't concentrate, you won't be able to write, okay? Now, number 3, turn off your phone, turn off your CB, turn off the TV, whatever you have, turn off the pager, turn everything off that will cause you to lose concentration. You've got to focus, okay? Any outside communication, I turn my phone off, I turn my pager off, I don't answer my emails, I just focus on my writing. You've got to set this time aside to write. That's very important. Now, these are just some basic ideas that will help you become disciplined to write every day. Now, let's get writing, okay? Okay, you've got your notebook, you've got your computer, you have a blank screen in front of you, your music, TV/bagpipes or whatever is playing in the background, and you are finally ready to write. So, where do you start? Do you just jump in and start writing witty banter and dialogue? Do you find some great relationships between the characters? Do you find some incredible setting? Well, we'll get to all that in a minute, but first we've got to start with the very basic thing, and that's the idea. You should start typing with an idea. Find your idea and develop from there. So here we go. Let's start with the idea. Your idea for the play or scene is very important. Use your ideas and learn to find new ones, both through brainstorming and research. This is where the notebook comes in so very handily. You have those ideas written down, you've collected them throughout the day, because you never know. You're sitting there in traffic, you're sitting in the mall, you're sitting at dinner, you're sitting at lunch, you're in your office, whatever you're doing, and you come up with an idea for a sketch. Put it in your book, and then now is the time when you'll come down and you'll brainstorm through that and make your ideas a little stronger. So, let me give you some ideas for brainstorming, okay? The first idea in brainstorming we want to talk about is this, basically pouring random ideas onto a page without stopping. Just start writing. Just get an idea and start writing. Time yourself for 10 minutes, whatever you want to do, but just start writing and freestyle this. Then go back and revise it, connecting certain thoughts that are parallel or cohesive in any form whatsoever. Now, another way to freestyle is just freestyle for however long I said, like 10, 15, 20 minutes, and don't touch it, okay? Come back and look at it later. Look at it like 3 or 4 weeks later, but then come back and revise it, whatever you want to do. The second one is give the piece a title. Call it something. Now, this will help you connect thoughts within the concept of that title. What sort of tone does it set? What sort of train of thought will help you in establishing the title? Then develop thoughts in reference to that title. This is called a hook, okay? So remember that. Look for the hook. Another strong idea is called diagram or web plotting. Now, what you want to do is I want to draw your circle in the middle of your page, put your main idea in there, and then start branching off with different lines and circles, and then off those lines and circles, branch off different ones until you have some sort of web that's crawling all over the page. Now, you'll start with your main idea, and then the other ideas will be inspired by your main idea, and then different ideas will be inspired off those. So now you have numerous ideas off the main one idea. So you can go back to those and then begin to freestyle with those and revise those as you need to. Also, another way is collaborate with other people. I'm a real big believer in the writing by committee format, especially with sketches, is writing these sketches by committee, is getting a group of people, 4 or 5 people together, and just throw out random ideas. Every idea is accepted. Write them down on index cards, put them in a bucket, and every idea is taken. Now, what you do is go back and you look at them later within the group of the committee, and you decide which ones are good ideas and which ones are not so good ideas. Maybe have a category of very strong, or weak ideas, and put them in categories there, and then just start writing as you see fit. Another great way to brainstorm is start a hook book or a journal like we've been talking about. Again, I can't stress how important this can be to your writing process. You never know when an idea may hit you. You may be in the store, or you may be in your car, or you may see a sign on the side of the road that inspires an idea for you to write a sketch about. So keep this journal with you and then jot your ideas down whenever you get a new one. Now, here's another idea. Choose a single word, get a thesaurus, and find all the similar words that begin on the same idea. Now, take those ideas, those words, those similar words, and begin developing thoughts based on the themes you discover between the words. These will tie directly into the theme you chose, or the theme you will become self-evident by the search process itself. This is a great and fun way to get things going. Another idea is go ahead, if you're upset and you're in a state of emotional upheaval, go ahead and write in that state. There's a lot of pure, honest ideas that will come out of that. Get your journal open and talk about real, honest feelings, and you'll be able to come back to those and have some, like I said, real, honest ideas about what to write about. Now, here's another idea if you decide to collaborate. This is a lot of fun to do, and I do this with my friends sometimes through emails, is I write one line, I email it to them, they write another line. They email it to somebody else, and they write another line, and then it comes back to me. So this gives a unique way of spinning on it in that you have 3 or 4 different people writing the same kind of theme, the same kind of topic, the same sketch. And this could be a lot of fun for you and your friends, but it's also a great way to brainstorming. So take these ideas of brainstorming and try to figure out what the best way it is for you to start getting some great ideas for your next sketch or play. The next step in the process of making you a better writer is observation. Good writers are good observers. They spot little details that say volumes about a person, place, or event. Playwrights, that's you, borrow constantly from their own lives. They take down the physical sensation and emotional moments they have witnessed or been a part of and use it in their writings. Details make things a lot more interesting. When writing about a specific event or experience, try to write down as many details as possible about the event. Keep these thoughts in your journal or notebook that you will always have with you. All observation and memory is sensory, linked to one or more of the 5 senses. To capture an audience, you must capture their senses, especially in theater, where only the most vivid, arresting images can speak to an audience. Strong sense stimulation is how a writer brings to minds an emotional and intellectual response. The way to an audience's heart is through their senses. Let's look at some ways we can fine-tune each of the 5 senses: sight, hearing, touch, smell, and taste. A lot of these exercises we have to done outside the room you're watching this video, so make a commitment to write these down and then come back and finish the rest of the video. Now, the first one is sight. We use our sense of sight every day, but there's so little that we actually see. Life is full of wonderful little surprises that we miss each day because we're too busy to stop and see what's going around us. Now, I want you to do this. I want you to pick 2 places that you go to almost regularly. One of the locations should be more public and the other more private and secluded. Both should be places you've taken for granted, like your kitchen, your office, a restaurant, or a park you go to a lot. Now, I want you to go and I want you to just stop and look around for 5 minutes, taking all that you see. What did you see that you've never seen before? How would you describe what you see without using cliches? How does looking closely at either place affect your perception of that place? Look again. What did you miss the first time? Later, try to remember all the details that you saw. Which details stand out the strongest? Which have you almost forgotten? Now, go back the next day and ask yourself what you've missed and what you need to look at again. Remember, keep writing all of these down in your journal so you can go back to them. The next one is hearing. Pick 2 more places that are different than the first places you went to. Go again and just stop, close your eyes and listen. What do you hear? What sounds stand out? What sounds fade away? What sounds did you never recognize before? Again, go down and write all these in your journal so you can have them to recall upon. The next one is touch. Now, what you're about to do is a lot more challenging than it may seem at first. Have someone help you out on this one. Have them take a small object and place it behind your back so you can't see it. Just a small everyday object. Now, feel its size, its weight, the texture of how it feels. Try to feel as many details as possible. Now, describe it in as many words as possible. Then look at the object. Does your description do it justice? This is a good way to bring back how we touch and the textures and senses that we have there. Now, the next one is going to be smell. This one seems really easy. Just stop and smell different aromas throughout the day. Do any of these smells bring back memories? I know in my life there's certain smells that will trigger memories from when I was younger. And these are things that will help me out in my writing process. Try to describe what you smell both concisely and with originality. Now, the next one is taste. This sense and smell seem to suffer as the years go by. But we can taste or smell something and it'll bring back a flood of memories, like I said. Slow down the next time you eat and try to register in your mind how each different food tastes. How do you react when you're done eating? Try to describe what you smell both concisely and with originality. This exercise is a great way to delve back in your past and see how important your senses are. Now here's an exercise I want you to do, okay? For each of pick 2 major events in your past, one that is tragic and one that is joyful. And I want you to write as many details as you can remember about that using your 5 senses. Make as long a list as you can with an entire specific details you can remember. From each list, select 8 objective sensory details that you feel best recreate the feeling of the event. Write a brief paragraph for each event, arranging the 8 details for maximum effect. Now, once you have them completed, find someone to read them to. Get used to the idea of hearing your work, of reading your work, of have somebody read your work. Dramatic writing is basically language on its feet, so it's always going to be performed or heard. Now, learning to share your work or learning to deal with criticism right from the very beginning will ease you into the spirit of writing for the stage. Okay, the next topic I want to address is called this. It's called creating settings. Settings are the physical environment where the scene takes place. The setting is the very important part of the play. It's where the play takes place. It's where the scene takes place. Don't underestimate the power or the purpose of a good setting. Even the simplest settings have a great impact on the whole action of the piece. For example, a vocal confrontation between a 7-year-old man and his son is a lot more powerful whether it takes place in a restaurant or in the privacy of the home. You see how the setting can change the same conversation? Well, that's what we're going to look at for you. Finding the proper setting for your scene makes the scene much more believable. It's better to give details rather than to say, oh, well, it just takes place in an apartment. But what kind of apartment? Is it a $1,500 a month apartment or is it a $100 a month apartment? Is it decked out with the latest in refrigerator or TV or couches, or is it just kind of a sparse apartment, things that they found at the thrift store? You see how the setting affects the mood of the rest of the play. It's very important you pick the right setting for the piece you're working on. The kind of apartment will determine a lot about your scene. Now, we're going to do an exploration exercise. We're going to explore several environments, at least one public and one private. Also, try to find one environment that is unfamiliar to you. Concentrate on the physical setting. Filter out as many people and activities as possible. Using all 5 senses, jot down as many details as possible. Now, Here are some questions to ask yourself after you've spent some time observing. How does the environment make you feel? What sensory details made you feel that way? What would someone else respond to that? How does the environment reflect the person or persons who created it? And does the environment try to appeal to a certain kind of person? Now, read the descriptions of the two settings aloud to several people whose opinions you trust. How do they respond to the environments of your settings? Do they respond differently than you expected? Do they respond differently from each other? Why is that? Now, take this exercise, work with the people you know, and see what you come out with. Now, the next step we're going to look at is building characters. One of the greatest challenges for a writer is creating good, vivid, three-dimensional characters with a life of his or her own. But there are characters all around you in the world you live in. Relatives, friends, acquaintances, people you have known. A lot of the most influential playwrights that are respected for their strong writings used as their models people from whom they had contact with every day in their lives. Even the most ordinary person can be the beginnings of an extraordinary character on stage. When describing a character, just as describing a setting, you need to be as brief as possible. The following information usually is included. Number 1, the name of the character. 2, the character's age. 3, a brief physical description of the character. And 4, the relationship of the character to the other characters in the play. Now, I'm going to give you a few hints that will help you in putting together a character description. A, choose the name carefully. A name says a lot about a person. If you're wanting to have a character that is a very matronly or mom-type character, you don't want to give her a young, peppy name. You want to give her a name that means a foundational thing, a solid name. You can put some symbolism in the names of your characters. Now, B, don't make a too detailed physical description of the character, or most likely be ignored by the actors. Unless it's critical to the role, such as you have a young man with a weight problem, physical description should be kept to a minimum. C, comments on the personality should be kept to a minimum. That should be left up to the actor to interpret. Now, include only the absolute essentials when putting together a character description. But that doesn't mean that the writer, you can't know what the character has all inside of them. You have to know the ins and outs of the character. Every detail of the character's life, you must know because you're creating this character. You have to know everything about your characters. Observing people is a great way to get ideas for characters. Here's another one, is look at the way people dress. The way people dress says a lot about their characters. Go observe the way people dress. Write down the ideas. Write down what they're wearing. Write down different things and bring them and put them in your journal. Now, here's what I want you to do for this exercise for the character development. I want you to write a short, brief paragraph how a stranger you observe, this is going to be called the present character, and a person you were close to that you haven't seen for some time. This is going to be called the past character. And we're going to refer to these characters as we develop more scenes as we go on through the workshop. Now, I want you to notice how these two people dress. Go back and think about somebody that you've known for a while but you haven't seen in a while. That's the past character. And then find a stranger and make that the present character. Observe how they dress and write that down. Then, based on your observations and recollections, write a brief personality history profile for both the present character and the past character. Read your descriptions of the characters and their personality profiles and life histories aloud to several people. How do they respond? Why do they respond that way to your personality profiles? Now, I want you to go ahead and do this. Take this exercise and find a couple characters, and let's start making some. Now, you have your characters, you have your settings. Let's put the two together. This is the next step in developing some strong writing, is put your characters in a setting. You have the two characters. Now we need to put them in a setting. Characters on stage are revealed by what they do and what they say. You need to realize that the environment of the scene will help the character as well. The environment will bring something out of the character that will enhance the overall impact of the scene. Now, let's say your character is a farmer that you knew when you're growing up, a pig farmer. This man was very simple in his ways. He had very simple values, very simple convictions. He spoke very simply. He dressed very simply. You don't want to put him in a Manhattan high-rise apartment with a lot of leather furniture. He won't fit in that. So you've got to find the right setting. So pick one of your settings that you workshopped on, that you researched on. Take one of the characters and put them in that setting. And that's your next exercise. Just find the setting for the right character. Now, you have your characters in the setting, you've put it all together. Now it's time to let the characters talk. That's the next step in this process, is letting them talk. We're going to give our characters some dialogue. Character is revealed not only by what the character says, but how they say it. Now, two important aspects that makes up how a character talks is this: vocabulary, what kind of words and phrases a character might use, and the vocal pattern, the idiosyncrasies of the character's speech. Collect interesting vocabulary and vocal patterns. Write phrases or things down and file them away to use later. If you hear a cool phrase or something that you think is very neat or something you think would be very character-like, write that down and put it in a file somewhere. If you have somebody who uses a lot of sayings, write those sayings down, things that you think would make interesting vocabulary or vocal patterns. Write those down and file them away. Now, here's a great way to develop a good ear for dialogue, is simply this, is eavesdrop. Constantly, shamelessly eavesdrop. At the mall, at dinner, wherever you're at, just listen to other people's conversations for a purely researched way. But do that because it helps you develop an ear for dialogue. Eavesdrop on friends talking, acquaintances discussing, strangers arguing, every conversation you can overhear. But eavesdrop in a very special way in order just to hear the vocal patterns and vocabulary of different people around you. As you listen to people talk, focus